What's going on, everybody? My name is Psycho, and I'm here at Dragon Tactical Industries. And today we're going to be talking about the introduction to strategic decision making and how does that affect your daily life. All right, so this was last week's topic, and today's the open discussion. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and leave a comment down below so we can get to you as we go on. Let's go ahead and start with this video.
Tactical Industries podcast, your go-to source for all things tactical training. Today we're peeling back the layers on an essential skill that is as vital to military and law enforcement personnel as it is to anyone navigating the turbulent waters of life. We're talking about strategic decision-making under pressure. Imagine being in the midst of a high-stakes situation where every moment is precious and the decisions you make could mean the difference between success and failure, life or death. This is not the time for hesitation or indecision. Every tick of the clock, every beat of your heart, the choices you make can ripple out, impacting not just your immediate environment, but the larger scheme of things. Consider Captain Johnson, a leader in a high-pressure hostage rescue operation. His challenge? A rapidly unfolding crisis, limited information, and the pressing need to make split-second decisions that could save lives. Through a lens of panic and disorder, Captain Johnson had to prioritize objectives, assess risks, and execute a decisive plan. His strategic decision-making skills, honed over time, allowed him to neutralize the threat and safely extract the hostages. This is the power and significance of strategic decision-making under pressure. It's not just about making a choice, it's about making the right choice at the right time, even when the stakes are high and the pressure is on. It's about...
So, how do you, if you're a soldier and you're watching this, right? So, how do you depend on operating under pressure if you don't train with that mindset, right? A few weeks ago, we talked about having the tactical mindset in your daily walk with, in general, and here we're talking today about being able to make decisive decisions to where you're able to think on your feet, right? So, for instance, if you don't practice this on your everyday, if you're driving on your car and you're on your cell phone, your situation awareness decreases a lot, right? Because you're only focused, you're only tunnel vision on what's going on in your phone. And if there's a car ahead of you that stops and all of a sudden you look up and what do? That's, being able to operate in that pressure, whether you went to a defensive driving course or a course where, you practice evasive maneuvers to where you can be able to, avoid the accident. You slam on the brakes, lock up the brakes, and then all of a sudden now your car's spinning. I mean, are you doing it under different weather conditions? Is there a vehicle behind you? I mean, do you look at the mirror every time you hit the brakes? Stuff like that, right? So you practice on that on your daily walk, so that way when it comes time to getting in the battlefield, getting in there, you have that mindset already while you're training and you're operating. And for your weekend warriors, whether you're an airsofter, a paintballer, or you're a 3-gun shooter, or anybody in general, when you go there, don't just go there just to dump ammo. You go there with the mindset of, I'm gonna make strategic decisions on decreasing the chances of you failing the mission and failing the objective. That's why it's really important, whether you're playing airsoft or whether you're training, that you guys focus on the mission and not just go out there, just to dump ammo.
about having the clarity and confidence to navigate through the fog of uncertainty, to stay focused, to weigh the risks, and to take decisive action. Strategic decision-making is a skill, a tool, a weapon that can be sharpened and refined. It's a lifeline that can pull you through the most challenging situations. It's a beacon that can guide you towards success, even when you're surrounded by chaos and confusion. Whether you're in the military, law enforcement, or simply facing life's trials, strategic decision-making under pressure is a skill you can't afford to ignore. That's why mastering the art of strategic decision-making is absolutely essential. So, what are some key principles that guide strategic decision-making under pressure? Let's dive into the heart of the matter. When you're under the gun, whether it's in a tactical operation or managing a crisis at work, there are three key principles to keep front and center. Firstly, we have clarity of objectives. Imagine you're in a labyrinth. Without a clear idea of where the exit is, you'd be wandering aimlessly, right? The same principle applies to decision-making. Clearly defined objectives provide a framework for your decisions, acting as your compass in the most intense situations. They guide your choices and help you stay focused on the end goal, keeping peripheral distractions at bay. Secondly, we have risk assessment. This is about evaluating the potential consequences of your decisions. It's like being at a crossroads and trying to determine which path is less treacherous. By weighing the potential outcomes, you can make informed decisions that minimize the likelihood of negative consequences. It's not about avoiding risk altogether, but about making calculated risks. The third principle is flexibility. Having a plan is important, but being able to deviate from it when necessary is equally crucial. It's like being a sailor navigating turbulent waters. You can't control the waves or the wind, but you can adjust your sails. Flexibility allows you to adapt to changing circumstances and make course corrections as needed. To illustrate these principles, let's consider the example of Lieutenant Chen. Chen was leading a search and rescue mission in a treacherous mountain terrain. His objective was clear: locate and safely extract the missing hikers. He assessed the risks, considering factors like the challenging terrain, unpredictable weather, and the condition of the missing hikers. Then, the unexpected happened. Severe weather conditions set in, threatening the safety of Chen's team. In the face of this new challenge, Chen demonstrated the principle of flexibility. He made the difficult decision to temporarily suspend the mission, prioritizing the safety of his team over the immediate objective. Chen's decision wasn't about abandoning the mission or the hikers. It was about adapting to the circumstances and making a strategic decision to minimize risk.
We talked about this a few weeks ago, right? As far as whenever you're in a combat situation, whether you're in a high risk situation, you have to be able to adapt to that situation as far as understanding what the root problem is, right? And being able to think quick on your feet, so that way you have proper solutions and proper training to where you can be able to, like for instance, like this incident right here, right? So if you twisted your ankle before you went on this mission, right, to do the rescue mission, are you properly fit for that situation? No, you're not. So what do you do as far as being a part and adapting to that? You know, do you become a secondary, a third personnel to be even on the mission? Do you have somebody that's a backup? There's a lot of things that come into play when, and it doesn't even mean that during that moment in time that you have to be under high stress situations. It's just one of those things is like, even for this podcast, right? So if I go to log in and it's 6:30 and my podcast isn't working or my internet went down, what am I gonna do? Do I go live on my phone? Is there a backup? Is there something to where now we have a way that we can have a backup plan, right? We want something to be able to do where you're able to have, different assets, different, things that you can put into place in order for you to be able to complete the mission successfully.
His decision to wait out the storm and resume the search when conditions improved ultimately led to the successful rescue of the hikers. So, if you take anything away from Lieutenant Chen's story, let it be this. Clarity of objectives, risk assessment and flexibility are key principles of decision-making under pressure. They're the pillars that will support you when you're in the thick of it, helping you to make sound decisions that can turn the tide in your favor. Remember, being under pressure doesn't mean you have to crack. Like a diamond formed under immense pressure, you can use these challenging situations to refine your decision-making skills, becoming more resilient and effective. Being adaptable and willing to adjust course in response to changing circumstances is equally crucial. And that is the essence of strategic decision-making under pressure. Enhancing your ability to make strategic decisions under pressure requires deliberate practice and preparation. This isn't something that you'll master overnight. It's a skill that needs to be honed, a muscle that needs to be flexed and trained regularly. But with the right strategies and a dedicated mindset, you can significantly improve your ability to make critical decisions swiftly and confidently, even in the most high-stakes situations. One of the most effective ways to enhance your decision-making skills is through simulation training. By immersing yourself in realistic, scenario-based training exercises, you're able to practice making decisions in an environment that closely mirrors the pressure and unpredictability of real-life situations. These simulations provide a safe space for trial and error, allowing you to learn from your mistakes and fine-tune your decision-making process.
So here we go, right? So this is very, very important whether you... All right. I think I got it going. So this is very important, right? So if you're going to be training, you got to always try to simulate what you're going into, right? So in the Marine Corps, whenever you get ready to deploy, they always send you to a workup, right? Whether it's a 9-week workup or something in relation to where you're going. So like for us, we went to Iraq. So then they sent us to Yuma, Arizona, 29 Palms, for us to train. That's how you can acclimatize to the weather. It's how you can operate in the conditions that you're going through, as far as what you're going to be doing when you're overseas, right? So the same thing goes with law enforcement or firefighters. I know whenever we went to the schoolhouse, we did a CFR course. It was like a 1-day course, but it's a crash fire rescue course, and they engulfed us in flames at the base, right? And I mean, these flames were like 30 feet tall, and in the bottom of it, there's the fuel, right? The jet fuel that's there, and it was on fire. And they, of course, you went through all the safety procedures and the course, the PowerPoint presentation and the course, but you practice like you train, right? And it was just something simple. It was like I said, it's only a 1-day course that we did. And there's other courses out there that'll do a 1-day course, so they'll do something to where it's like a 1 week, 3 months, a few years, depending on what you're doing, or an ongoing course where it's like, no, it's an ongoing certification in order for you to to be able to be, whether it's a firefighter or a law enforcement officer. You can't expect going to the range once a year just so you can be certified to shoot paper targets, but then you don't go train at any training facility where you can apply all the things that you're going to live by on a day-to-day basis, as far as if you're a police officer. So I just think that in general, whether you're doing this for fun or whether you're doing this for your career, you need to be able to find a program that can fit your unit, that is able to bring that real life situation, up to par. I got my brother-in-law here who is a corpsman. Go ahead and say what's up, brother. We're gonna not name him for purposes, but he's a corpsman, right? So, hey, bro, how was it as far as training to be a corpsman? Was it like just OJT where it's on the job training, or is it something that's like, no, you're gonna learn more as you go, into the field, you know, or hey, here's your crash course real quick. Um, this is what you need to know as your basics, and then after that, it's up to you to pick something up as far as depending on what unit you're gonna go to.
So our training was basically just it's basically them getting us into muscle memory of knowing the pure basics of it, and everything else we basically learned on our own. So it's more you'll learn more once you're out in the fleet. Um, our main thing in core school was, just learning basic how the human body works, what to do if there's a issue with breathing, learning your basics, your ABCs, which is your airway, your breathing, and your circulation. Um, them teaching us that, I guess, opened up the whole book for us to actually learn more into detail of what we had to do depending on if it was hemorrhaging, if it was a gunshot wound, if it was a cardiac arrest. It all expanded from there. It could have been more extensive training, but I see the reason behind why they didn't actually go into detail for it, because every position you go into is always different. It doesn't matter if you're working in a hospital setting, if you're working on a ship setting, if you're working out in the field setting, all settings are different. So you have to learn to adapt with different conditions, especially like, you know, when I was out in the field setting, we had to learn heat casualties, temperatures and stuff like that. And now that when we're transitioning, let's say we go into a hospital setting, now we have to learn symptoms for cardiac arrest, depending on the inpatient outtake and, you know, basic stuff like that.
Right. So would you say that, like, say, let's say a simulation for cardiac arrest out in the field, would that be like, oh snap, I'm not certified to do that, or we weren't taught that? Um, do you think that it would be more helpful if they incorporated that, or would it be more like, you know what, that's not something we really go into, so at that point you just train on what's more frequently, right? And you bring, I know for us, like whenever we have a corpsman, which is you guys, uh, it's to the point where, okay, well, when we do all this crazy stuff, you guys are right there with us, you know, in the suck, you know, sweating and you know, and you're in full kit. It's not like, oh, okay,
Correct.
yeah, I'm gonna carry a backpack that's empty with snacks, right?
Correct.
So you end up, you it's a cliche term, but you practice like you train, right? So, or you practice like you play. So if you're not training to the most realistic potential of what you're going to be encountering, are you really doing yourself justice at that point?
No, but I mean, how I said, like, core school is just the basics. When you go out into a field setting, teach you before you go out into the actual field. They teach you what you need to know out there. You learn more into depths. So, like, let's say if one of my Marines had a heart attack while we're out on a 10-mile ruck, you know, what do you do for a cardiac arrest? A lot of people will question, oh no, well, what are we gonna do? There's no ambulance, there's no AED. What are we gonna do? So first things you do is CPR, and that's the first thing they teach us. If there's no breath, there's no heart. You gotta get that heart pumping. But it goes as whatever setting you go to. How I said, there's individual trainings. The trainings never stop, so it's always constant training. So whether you're in the field, you're doing trainings, practice runs, in case something happens. You could expect the craziest thing to happen out in the field, and it's muscle memory because we practiced it. Or you could have the craziest thing happen in the hospital and we practiced it because we're constantly running drills. If you don't run drills, you don't have that muscle memory. I mean, it's pointless to even learn any knowledge of what you're trying to get out of it.
Right. Okay, we're gonna move forward with this video, and then we're gonna go over stress management towards the end.
Another crucial strategy is mental rehearsal. This involves visualizing yourself in challenging scenarios and mentally rehearsing your responses. It's like running a simulation in your mind, allowing you to prepare for a variety of situations before you ever encounter them in reality. This mental practice can increase your confidence, enhance your problem-solving abilities, and ultimately enable you to act more decisively when faced with similar situations in real life. Additionally, learning stress management techniques can be incredibly beneficial. High-pressure situations often induce stress, which can cloud your judgment and impede your ability to make sound decisions. Techniques such as deep breathing, mindfulness, and stress inoculation can help you manage this stress, allowing you to maintain your composure and stay focused amidst the chaos. Let's consider the example of Emily, a first responder who underwent intensive training in emergency medical care. As part of her training, Emily engaged in numerous simulation exercises ranging from minor traffic accidents to full-blown disaster scenarios. These exercises put her decision-making skills to the test, helping her to improve her ability to quickly assess situations, prioritize objectives, and make critical decisions under pressure. Emily also practiced mental rehearsal, visualizing herself in various emergency situations and mentally rehearsing her responses. This helped to familiarize her with the decision-making process and prepared her to act decisively in real-life emergencies. Finally, Emily learned several stress management techniques to help her stay calm and focused during high-pressure situations. She practiced deep breathing exercises to reduce her heart rate and calm her nerves, used mindfulness techniques to stay present and focused, and underwent stress inoculation training to help her manage the physical and emotional stress of her job. Through simulation exercises and stress management techniques, Emily learned to maintain her composure and make critical decisions swiftly and confidently during medical emergencies. And just like Emily, you too can enhance your decision-making skills and become more effective in high-pressure situations. Remember, it all starts with deliberate practice and preparation. As we conclude today's episode, remember that strategic decision-making under pressure is a skill that can be cultivated and refined over time. Over the past several minutes, we've discussed the importance of this crucial ability, whether you're in the military, law enforcement, or simply facing life's numerous challenges. We've highlighted the importance of having clearly defined objectives which provide a framework for your decision-making process. They allow you to maintain focus even when the heat is on and the clock is ticking. We've also emphasized the need for risk assessment, a critical step that allows you to make informed decisions by weighing potential outcomes and minimizing the possibility of negative consequences. Flexibility, too, plays an integral role in strategic decision-making under pressure. As we've discussed, having a plan is key, but being adaptable and prepared to adjust course in response to changing circumstances can often mean the difference between success and failure. To enhance your decision-making skills, we've offered several strategies. Simulation training, mental rehearsal, and stress management techniques can all help you to prepare for and effectively navigate high-pressure situations. We've shared the stories of Captain Johnson, Lieutenant Chen, and first responder Emily, who each demonstrated the power of strategic decision-making under pressure. Their actions, driven by clear objectives, risk assessment, and adaptability, were instrumental in achieving their respective missions. To reiterate, the ability to make sound strategic decisions under pressure is not something you're necessarily born with. It's a skill, and like any skill, it can be honed and improved upon with practice and dedication. So, whether you're leading a team, saving lives, or simply navigating your way through a challenging day, remember the principles we've discussed today. Keep your objectives clear, assess the risks, stay flexible, and practice, practice, practice. Until next time, stay sharp and remember, every decision counts.
All right, and so again, we're going to be talking about stress management now for this next part of the podcast. Let me see if I can fix this. Nope, that's not what I needed to do. There we go. Okay, so this is your quick course for tactical situation management, handling stress effectively. Okay, so for instance, a lot of organizations, whether it's law enforcement or military, we handle stress differently, right? Everybody handles stress differently. Growing up, you hear, get over it, right? But in today's time, we realize like there's a lot of people who don't know how to quote unquote get over it, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about preparing yourself, you know, before you go on a mission, while you're in a mission, and being able to handle this stress, and then after the mission, the debrief and all that stuff, as far as being able to effectively address what stress is, right? So, understanding stress. So, define the stress the body responds to pressure or threats. Types of stress is acute, short term, and chronic, long term. Effective stress, physical, emotional, and congenitive impacts. Right. So, you being a corpsman, bro, that actually, how do you see stress affecting the body on a short term basis? They get the clammy skin, they start sweating really bad. You can tell that they're highly stressed, right? Their eyes dilate. I mean, what are some of the things that you've seen as a corpsman that's short term that you can pick up that they're already under stress?
So some of the vital signs that we usually see out here is, you know, stuttered speech, pacing, clammy skin. I mean, pale look, a lost look. There's a couple of signs that we've seen out here. We haven't seen too much crazy stuff, but the dilated eyes, we've seen them a couple times. But that's like further down into a more intense stress level.
Right. And then what about long term? Have you seen anything that you've seen since you've been in? Have you seen anything as far as the effectiveness? Not the effectiveness, but pretty much how does stress affect you long term wise if it's not handled?
So one thing I have seen, and we say too much because of HIPAA, but
No. Okay.
um,
Well. Let's put it like this: if it was me, right? What are some of the things that I like? What are some of the things that if I don't handle stress the correct way, what are some of the things that you would say like, well, okay, well, you're not gonna be able to sleep,
correct.
and it's not so much that you're thinking about what caused the stress. It's just it can be something subconsciously impacting you, or or anything in that matter.
Correct. So one of the telltale signs is sleep, of course, but there's also eating habits, behavioral habits. A lot of people, for instance, hold stress in and don't even notice it, but they get an addiction to either nicotine, alcohol. Those are all key factors of stress. You know, People think, it's I'm just having a drink, but one drink turns to three, four, five, and it just becomes a normal habit. And the main cause of that is the actual long-term effects of the stress that you underwent that was not properly treated. There's times where people don't really let off their stress as good as they should. So over the time, it'll build up. You know, Stress tends to build up, and eventually you'll see people snap left and right. Either get really grumpy over small things. They missed something, and they blow up, break doors. Kick computers. It's there's Those are the main key factors that we've seen, um, as far as long-term stress effects. You know, they're treatable, of course, but if not dealt with, they could go deep down and further.
Right. Um. So defining the stress as the body's natural response. Stress is the body's natural response to the pressure, or threats, whether they are real or perceived, right? So, for instance, I'm gonna use this as a very blanket statement. It doesn't mean like it's towards anybody, but let's just say that you're getting ready to talk to that really pretty girl that you've seen, right? And you're like, oh my god, and you play every possible outcome in your head, and so what happens? You elevate your stress, and you're stressed out, and you're like, I don't know if I'm gonna stutter, I don't know if I'm gonna trip on my shoelaces or whatever it may be, right? So that's something that you're perceiving. You're already freaking out when you don't when you haven't even made the attempt yet, right? And that's something as simple as that. It doesn't even mean like, oh, on the battlefield, if you're or in that case. So stress is the stress is just the body's natural response. So uh, and you need to be able to understand when you're feeling that stress, because it's natural, right? It's not something that, oh well, I'm not stressed out about anything, man. I got nerves of steel. You know what I mean? But that's your natural response to pressure or threats. So if you don't naturally respond to it, at that point, are you putting yourself at higher risk of being injured or being hurt because now you can't sense what a threat is, right? So being able to understand what stress is first of all, right? Moving on to the next one, it is a complex physiological reaction that prepares the body to either fight the threat or flee from it, right? The fight or flight syndrome, or freeze in the response to it. You know how many times I've seen that, whether it's at the arena, the outdoor field, on op, or a situation like I said, oh, I'm gonna go confront this person, uh, for whatever it may be, and they freeze up, and then they're like, "Nah, I'm okay, dude. Like, my stomach hurts, and like I feel like throwing up now, or hey, I gotta go use the bathroom," and they make all the excuses, right? So they got that fight or flight, you know, part to go with. So the types of stress, the acute stress, right? We talked about that in the slide before. An acute stress is a short-term stress that is typically triggered by a specific event or situation. Examples include deadlines, public speaking, or sudden emergencies. While acute stress can be intense, it is usually temporary, and once the threat has passed, the body returns to its normal state. Perfect example. My middle child, when I was active duty, we had gotten back from Iraq, and uh, you know, things happen, and you celebrate you're still alive, and your wife gets pregnant, and my son 9 months later he ends up being born, and but I was on base. I didn't have a car. Um, she took the car to the hospital herself. One of my buddies, Smiley, he ended up taking me all the way back to base housing, which is like 25-30 minutes away from the base, right? Thinking that I had to go there, pick her up, and then go to the hospital because she told me she went to labor, not knowing that she was already in labor. Um, and then when we found out, and back then, I don't want to say like we didn't have phones, but back then, like the phones were a little bit different from what we have now, where it's like, oh, you can't sneeze without thinking, without having a phone next to you real quick. So, long story short, we ended up going like in an hour and a half trip, going from the main base over to the house, and then back to over to the hospital, because everything was on separate islands. So you had to just travel, and by the time we got there, I was like, oh man, and that's just short term stress, right? Because you're panicking because you know, I thought she went to the city hospital. So I went home, changed over into my civvies, so that way, because in the Marine Corps you can't rock your camis out in public unless you're training, right, or you're in transition from training to training. So for us, we were not allowed to wear our uniforms out there like that. So I go home, change over, and then I went over. I was like, well, I'm already here, so I'm gonna change over, and then I'm gonna see you at the hospital. But but that's that short term stress. Like you didn't want to miss anything, even though she didn't really have my son until a whole day later. Um, but that's that short term stress, right? Something as simple as that that can cause it. Like I said earlier, public speaking, being able to make sure that everything's set up and ready to go for this podcast. There's some sort of short term stress, making sure that everything's on, everything's smooth, and there's, I have my brother-in-law, jump on, for the podcast, or with whoever's gonna be on as a guest, all that's short-term stress relations. No, moving over to the chronic stress. Chronic stress is a long-term stress that proceeds over an extended period of time. It can be a result from ongoing issues such as financial problems, relationship conflicts, or work-related stressors. Uh, Chronic stress can be cumulative effect on the body, leading to serious health problems if left unmanaged. Now, I did ask you earlier, what are some of the things that can happen if you don't manage your stress for a long period of time, right? And we'll go over how to manage the stress here in a minute. But as far as the chronic stress for a long period of time, it does affect you in your health issues. Something as simple as that you start gaining weight, you start losing their appetite, you start losing weight. It can be from a divorce, from or like I said earlier, your job, or one of your best friends and you just got into it, and all of a sudden, oh, I don't care, I'm just gonna keep on walking, but it still affects you in the long term. So how do you manage it and how do you move forward, right? So effects of the stress. Understanding stress is going to be physical impacts, increased heart rate and blood pressure, muscle tension, and headaches. Oof. I know a lot of us suffer from headaches, right? It's like, oh man, I got a headache. Like I need some Motrin, right? But does that help manage your stress, or is that just a symptom of what it does, right? Digestive problems such as stomach aches or nausea, weakened immune system, making individuals more susceptible to illnesses, sleep disturbances, including insomnia. I know I suffer from insomnia, and excessive sleeping. So it can go either or. You don't have the energy to get up and attack the day for what it is. Emotional impacts, feeling of anxiety, nervousness, or irritability. That's what you said earlier. Like somebody just blowing out of pocket, right? Like it could be something simple that just triggers that person, and all of a sudden they're talking out loud, and they're disrupting the regular citizens that are around you, and now you're looking like the guy who's doing an outburst, and then somebody tells you to calm down, and you're like, I am calm, right? So just one of those things. Mood swings, emotional outbursts, overwhelm or feeling out of control, decreased motivation or interest in activities. So if you known to do something for a long period of time, and all of a sudden you have any lack of interest in it, I mean that's a sign of emotional impact of stress. Depression or feelings of hopelessness, right? So that's waking up the next day and being like, man, I can't move on, I can't go beyond this. Like there's no tomorrow at that point, right? You start feeling like, man, I don't want to wake up for tomorrow. I don't want to have to fight this situation alone, or I don't want to have to, address this anymore, right? What are some congenitive impacts, right? Difficulty concentrating or making decisions. If you're in a job that requires you to make critical decisions in a high stressed environment, and you don't handle your stress correctly, That's very, very bad. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna go into more into that as far as like what's going on in the world right now. But if you're in a position where you can't handle stress or you ignore the stress, it still affects you all the way around. Memory problems or forgetfulness. I guess I suffer from a lot of stress because I definitely have a lot of memory problems. Um, Racing thoughts or constant worrying, right? So I know I have a lot of tias that are like that. A lot of aunts that are like, they're constantly worrying about, what are the possibilities. For instance, like the eclipse, right? Like, oh, what is your plans? What's gonna happen? What's gonna, and they start freaking out, and it's like all they tell you is like, oh, you should just be prepared. Make sure you have water. Make sure you have toilet paper. Make sure you have a generator and a radio and this that, and the other, right? And people start, rabbit holing, where they just go down and it's hard for them to pull out. And that's that high level stress, right? Are you able to make critical decisions like that? No. Reduce cognitive flexibility and problem solving abilities. Impaired judgment and decision making skills. Again, like, how are you able to do your job if you're stressed to the point of you're not able to make critical decision making? All your decision making skills are gone at that point. So, stress management before a tactical situation. What do you do as far as making sure that you have to understand, what is the stress, right? So prepare mentally and physically. Uh, and engage in regular physical exercise. You got to make sure that you're up to physical standards in order for you to attack any tactical situation. Again, for instance, I'm a type 2 diabetic Marine, so if I know like I'm gonna be out in the field for X amount of XYZ and I don't have my metformin or I'm out of metformin completely, is like what I do, you know what I mean? So I have to make sure my physical exercise, I'm eating healthy, I'm staying fit, and so whether it's active duty, retired, or citizen sector, you just need to always stay active in order for you to be able to be ready for any tactical situation. Practice relaxation techniques such as deep breathing or mindfulness, right? A lot of people say, well, okay, well, meditate or pray, clear the mind, being able to focus on what's going to happen next, right? As far as the mission, visualize success and positive outcomes. I know a lot of us prepare for the, what do they say? Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. That's where that comes into play. Stress management before a tactical situation. Prepare the mental and physically. Familiarize yourself with a tactical situation and objectives. Stay informed about potential challenges or threats. Develop a plan of action and review it regularly, right? So this is like the briefing before you go out on a mission, before you go out on a situation. So the operation order at that point. Ensure you have necessary equipment and resources. How many times have you ever gone out to the field and you didn't have the equipment that you needed, bro?
Uh, Almost none.
Almost none, right? Because what do? You
Yep.
do
You
Go ahead.
you do bag checks. So you do bag checks before you go out into any field situation. Make sure you have all your equipment. Make sure you have extra whatever you need. So you always gotta do your bag checks before you go anywhere.
Right. Um. So you. So moving on. Engage in mental exercise such as visualization and planning, or the scenario planning to anticipate various outcomes. Engage in regular exercise. We did talk about that. Incorporate cardiovascular activities such as running, swimming, or cycling to improve overall fitness or endurance. Right. Um, include strength training exercise to build muscles, strength and resilience. So I have my son again. Um, he's in middle school and he's working out, right, and he wants to lift heavy weights. And I'm like, son, your muscles are still growing, so you still need to, it's good to lift heavy, but don't lift heavy all the time, right? You want to tighten up your muscles. You want to make yourself lean, so that way you have good circulation of blood through your system, right? So, and he's like, oh, I want to get bigger. I'm like, son, you're still growing, so you need to be able to get oxygen through your system, so that way your muscles can grow and breathe, right? Otherwise, you're gonna get tired and you're gonna. Have you ever seen like for instance, I'm only gonna use this as an example because it did happen. And Brock Lesnar in a UFC fight, he turned purple, right? He's a big guy, really big guy. So he's out there punching and stuff, and he just turned purple, and you're like, dude, he's got no oxygen flowing through his body right now, like he's exhausted, right? So you need to be able to do strength training and be able to create that resilience. And just because you lift weights doesn't mean that you're able to go out there and go out there for a, whether it's a 1 day mission or a few hour mission, and it ends up being a multiple hour mission, or a 3 day event, or a whole week exercise. Practice functional movements relevant to the tactical situations, such as agility drills or obstacle courses. Aim for at least 30 minutes of moderate intensity exercise most days of the week, right? So that's that initial training, right? That hardcore. You know what? I'm gonna I'm gonna go into muscle failure, right? So you just go extremely hard. So at the minimum, 30 minutes per week. If you can do that. If you can't do that, because of situations, well then try to aim for something like that. Practice relaxation techniques. Practice relaxation techniques such as deep breathing and mindfulness. Right, deep breathing. Take a deep breath slow. Focus on filling your lungs with air and exhaling fully. This helps activate the body's relaxation response and reduces stress. Right, so if you're getting ready to go out to the field, or you're getting ready to go on this situation, I've seen a lot of people take a deep breath where like, and they just like take that deep breath and try to relax before you even get there, right? And then you practice being present in the moment without judgment. We went over this a few weeks ago, talking about the shooting at the church, right? So you go into a situation without any judgment. You go in there and you operate at maximum potential. At that point, you're not trying to create a motive. You're not a detective, so you leave that to the professionals. You're there to assess the situation and complete the mission. Pay attention to your thoughts, feelings, and sensations without trying to change them. Mindfulness can help calm the mind and improve focus. Incorporate relaxation techniques into your daily routine, such as before bed or during breaks throughout the day. Consider using relaxation apps or guided meditation recordings to assist you in practicing these techniques. Right. So if you pray, before an event. I strongly suggest that you pray before anything at all. So that way you tell God, like, hey, give me the knowledge to and the stress management that I need in order for me to complete this mission 100%, whether you're a doctor, police officer, or military personnel, or even as a regular citizen that's about to engage into a situation. Again, a few weeks ago, when the school shooting, that police officer, she started praying, and it doesn't mean that you have to recite a certain verse or anything like that. You just talk to God and be like, just in case. It shouldn't be a just in case scenario. It should be the primary, you know, way to go about things, right? So moving on. Take the time to mentally rehearse the scenario. Imagine yourself navigating through the challenges with a confidence and skill. Visualize specific actions and response that lead to successful outcomes. Focus on positive imagery such as achieving objectives, effectively communicating with the team members, and maintaining calm under pressure. I can't tell you how many times there was a situation where people were like, "Psycho, what do we do? What do we do?" And I'm like, "Hold on, give me a second." And then you just at that point you clear your mind, your focus right there and then, and you're able to see everything, all the possibilities, and then at that point you make that critical decision, right? Is that ever happened to you, bro? Where people are pressuring you to make a decision right there and then, and you're like, "Hold on, give me a second," and you gather yourself up and you before you make that critical decision.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're Marine Corps, right? So, I mean, you know how gunnies could be. When they see one of their Marines down, they panic, and they either one or two ways: they panic or they get aggravated. And when you have a body down and you have a gunny in your ear screaming, get him up, what's wrong with him?" You gotta assess the situation, take control. And I've had to do that multiple times where I had to be like, back up, and then I had to collect myself and make the vital decision of where we're gonna go from there. Because if I would have made a rash decision based off of me panicking because I'm getting yelled at or because I have somebody in my ear panicking, the wrong decision would have been made.
So, which takes us into our next slide here, right? So, stress management during a tactical situation, right? Staying focused on the task at hand, controlling your breathing, utilizing the breathing techniques of 444, or people say 5 by 5, right? Um, they take 5 minutes, 5 steps back, 5 deep breaths, and then you re-engage into the situation. You don't necessarily have to do 5 minutes. You can do 5 seconds or whatever, however fast you can move. Your brain. Prioritize tasks and make decisions calmly and effectively. Communicate effectively with team members. Like you said right now, talking to the gunny. You know, obviously the gunny's gonna be a higher chain of command, right? So he's out there giving orders, right? He's giving you the order, like get my marine up, right? And you're like,
Right.
you have to have tact and bearing at that point where you're like, gonna step back for a second. Let me figure out. Let me do a head to toe assessment real quick. What happened? How did he fall? Did he hit his head? Did he strike his head? Is he a heat cas? Do you touch his skin and he's dry to the bone, and it's 110 degrees outside, and he's got no sweat on him. So you're not able to do all that if everybody's just clouding you, and at that point you got to stay calm, and being a corpsman, that's a lot of respect towards you, brother.
Yep, yep.
um this goes more into detail on that. We are getting close to our hour, so we're gonna fly through this pretty quick. If you guys want more in this situation, go ahead and sign up for Dragon Tactical Industries courses, and you guys can see that we go into details as far as what each thing does, right? So here's a case study. We're just gonna go past that real quick. All right, so that's pretty much it. As far as it's pretty much just a case study showing, like, okay, this hostage situation, this is what happened, the stress management techniques of what happened, and the outcomes and lessons learned, right? The after action report at that point. So as far as you, brother, I mean, what do you do when it comes to the after action report, right? Do you just drop it right there and then, and pick it up when you need to, as far as handling stress? Or what is it that you do to disengage from that?
So you being in the field I'm in, you gotta learn how to have a cold shoulder and leave everything at the doorstep. When they say don't bring anything home with you, it means don't bring anything home with you. So yes, you know they're human beings. They're your brothers. They're they're people you care about. But at the same time, if you harp on it, I've learned to, just leave it at the doorstep, take back, take steps, and breathe, and just move on to the next thing. Keep myself occupied. That way, I don't go back and I harp on certain situations.
All right. Um, so Mr. Solis, you guys know him. Maybe you've seen him at the arena. He says it is critical not to know the outcome on each scenario. When I used to work at the OR and the ER, my first year as a technician, uh, I went to work on the OR. There was a few times when you have to work with pressure. Doctors are with the patient that has moments to deal under stress. There's times that patients are allergic to rubber and or don't know what's happening. So the scenarios are just as good when you work in the ER or in the OR or trauma. So that's what he commented. So I appreciate Mr. Solis for commenting on the on Facebook there. So yeah, that's just it. Is like you said, not being able to take it home with you, right? So when you're at home, you you're able to focus on now a new mission. You're able to focus on your family, your loved ones, and you're there just like you're there on the objective. You're there on the mission. You're there for that, and nothing else distracts you from that. You should be there for your family, there for your loved ones, there for yourself, for you,
Correct.
right? A lot of us forget, about ourselves because we're always trying to make everybody happy, everybody, around us, and we end up forgetting about our own happiness, our own ability to be able to help ourselves first, and then because if how are you supposed to help out others if you're the one who's suffering, right? And if we go all the way back up to these things as far as how does it affect you, physically, emotionally, and congenitally. I can't say that word. uh if these things are affecting you, right? And look at all. And these are just some of the top things that I found on the internet as far as what are the top things that affect you physically. What are the top things that affect you emotionally? Because there's a massive list, and everybody's different. Everybody has different situations. So how are you able to help your brother, your sister, your mother, your father, your stepdad, your stepmom, your stepbrother, your stepsister, your cousin, your uncles, your kids, right? Because they all look up at us and they look up at us for as examples. But if you're not able to be there because you're dealing with all of this, you got to take care of yourself first, right? And taking that away, and leaving you guys with that, not taking it away, but leaving you guys with that as far as handling stress. You have to understand the problem, the situation. You need to be able to know what are some of the techniques in order for you to be able to address the situation before, how to prepare for it, so you can decrease the amount of stress that you're feeling when you're in the actual situation itself. Being prepared, right? Training, and being able to disengage and re-engage and assess the situation, and being able to adapt to a situation if it doesn't go the way you planned it. So that's all I got for now. You brother, do you have any ending messages you want to tell the public?
Nope. I mean, you couldn't have said it better. Just practice, practice, practice. Practice doesn't make perfect, but it makes you better. Just that's all I could say. And be a sponge, absorb everything around you. In the good way, not the the negative way. You know.
All right, guys. You guys have fun. Thank you for joining me on today's podcast on open discussion. And for those of you guys that are going to be enjoying your Easter this weekend, don't forget why you're enjoying it to begin with. So, from our family to yours, live